Chair, Excellencies, good morning. The 2018 UNDS repositioning, as you know, mandated a new generation of UN country teams with needs-based country presence, and I'm leaning into that phrase, needs-based, in order to facilitate joined-up, scaled-up support for the 2030 agenda. From my experience as resident coordinator in Gabon at the start of the reforms, and then for the last 5 years in Kenya, and now for the last 2 months in China, I've seen real progress. In Kenya, for example, over the first 4 years of our cooperation framework, we launched some 20 joint programs across the UNCT, uniting diverse UN entities to deliver as one, and catalyzed and supported by a growing country-level pooled fund. And already, in those 4 years, half of our total program value, year on year, was being delivered jointly through joint programming, joint programs under one cooperation framework. So lots of good progress to report. How can UN country teams continue to go further? I could save us all a lot of time by just saying what they said, because there's profound agreement, particularly with what Georges and Yesim have just said. But let me just underline some of the same points with a spin from my own perspective. First, yes, cooperation frameworks must provide the overarching structure for all UN engagement at country level, and I mean all, converging us in joint work around a small set of tight, shared strategic objectives. And Georges, I think you were very eloquent on this point. The cooperation frameworks must sincerely reflect the top national priorities. And again, the word top is really important there. We all know how many priorities that there are in any country, but what are the top priorities and how can we gear our support towards those? The cooperation frameworks must capture the full range of UN country-level activities, not in a way that is restrictive or restricting, but that is comprehensive, so that synergies become obvious, opportunities for joint programming obvious, and duplication and waste can be eliminated. And these cooperation frameworks must be collectively developed and owned across the UN family, so that the inevitable trade-offs and hard choices, including on what the country-level configuration should look like, that those trade-offs are collectively identified and collectively owned. Second, yes, there must be mutual visibility and transparency across the activities of the as many as 25, 26 agencies that we had in UN Kenya. Each entity needs to understand everybody else's portfolio, and resident coordinators need to be enabled to coordinate across a unified results framework and a single joint work plan. And yes, that does mean, as you've heard this morning, CPDs, country program documents, or their equivalents, not everybody calls them CPDs, they must be genuinely derived from the cooperation framework, not just loosely aligning with it. And that does have implications for aligning planning cycles. Cooperation frameworks need to go first, and then the CPDs. So again, Georges, really agree with you on that. And we heard earlier in the week that there are some nervousnesses from some agencies, funds and programs that changing planning cycles could risk interruption of service. I think that there are very easy fixes for that. We may need a transitional moment where we bring the planning cycles progressively into line, but we need to do it. And that's going to require firm messaging from you, the member states, who are members of those boards of the UN entities or the governing assemblies. We need your leadership there, and we need consistency in the language that you give us in this very valued ECOSOC segment with what you're saying or your colleagues are saying in the boards. And then country-level configuration decisions should flow rigorously from that collective strategic decision-making that is anchored in the cooperation framework. Third, and again we've heard this earlier, equal application of the cooperation framework to in-country and non-resident UN entities alike. And in fact, that distinction between resident and non-resident has been pretty irrelevant or disappearing over the last decade, especially in the increasing portfolio of upper middle income and high income contexts where country teams are now working. Those contexts in particular demand really punctual, highly specialized policy expertise that isn't readily found in the agency's funds and programs that are embedded, fixed on the ground, with all of the impedimenta of accreditation, permanent representation, relatively fixed staffing and program and costs. Increasingly, that type of specialist expertise needs to be met instead through much more lightweight, low-cost, and yes, flexible models, embedding experts who borrow a desk and support within a resident coordinator's office or hosted within one of the larger agencies' funds or programs on the ground. Here I'm talking about deployment from the regional or indeed the global level, and so it follows logically from there that what we need is a quick, simple, reliable expertise, a mechanism for tapping into regional or global pools of expertise, the expertise on demand model. Fourth and finally, interoperable digital platforms. And yes, you put your finger on it. UN Info that we have at the moment is potentially very powerful, but it's limited by its inability to plug and play with agency systems. Simply put, we have double entry. So agencies, funds and programs do their own reporting in their own systems, and then this has to be manually re-entered either by RCO staff or those same agencies, funds and program staff in UN Info. We need to invest in the interoperability. The UN 80 work stream on technology and data promises a platform to streamline common results reporting for clarity and efficiency, and you heard about this from Jens van Del just yesterday. Host governments, most important, partners and UN entities, all of us will benefit hugely from having this real-time shared visibility of how programs are advancing or where they're faltering, and understanding the financial data and the progress. This common information point couldn't be more important, so please hold our feet to the fire about it collectively. To conclude, empowered resident coordinators are central to all of these further reforms, but not as gatekeepers. We don't intend to be gatekeepers, we want to be gateways. We unite efforts, we reduce frictions and inefficiencies, and we help UN country teams tap into far greater quanta of development financing through new partnerships. Excellencies, I know of no UN country team anywhere, nor of any resident coordinator who are not resolutely striving daily to accelerate their country's journey towards the SDGs. And with your support on these points, I believe we can go much further. Thank you.